Hawaii is the most isolated archipelago on Earth. It sits over 2,000 miles from the nearest continent, alone in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Now look closer. The longest gap between any two neighboring islands is about 70 miles. The shortest is 8.4 miles. You can stand on one island and see the other. On a clear morning, you can make out the ridgelines, and yet there is no bridge, no tunnel, no fixed crossing of any kind. Why can't the Hawaiian Islands connect to each other? The world has a habit of looking at impossible gaps and reaching for a pencil. Gibraltar, about 9 miles of water separating Europe from Africa. Engineers and governments have been drawing proposals since 1930. Spain and Morocco are still in active discussion today. The Bering Strait, about 50 miles between Alaska and Russia. The idea goes back to 1892. Vladimir Putin approved a railroad plan in 2008. Japan to Korea, about 130 miles of open ocean. Engineers have been studying this since 1917. Multiple feasibility reports confirm it is physically possible. All three have proposals, government committees, and engineering blueprints. Now look at Hawaii. Hawaii has 8 main islands. The Big Island, the largest and youngest of the 8, sits at the southeastern end of the chain. From there, the islands continue northwest, one by one, spread across 350 miles of open ocean. There is no road between any of them, no rail, no ferry in regular operation. If you are standing on Waikiki Beach in Oahu and want to watch lava flow on the Big Island, you book a flight. If you want to drive the road to Hana on Maui, you book a flight. If you need to move a car between islands, you ship it on a barge. Hawaiian Airlines alone runs over 170 inter-island flights every single day. Nearly 3,000 Hawaii residents board a plane just to get to work each morning. When a storm grounds flights, islands run out of supplies within days. There is no backup system. For a U.S. state, that is a completely unique problem, and it exists because nothing in this chain has ever been permanently connected. The longest gap is between Kauai and Oahu, home to Honolulu, the state capital. That gap is wide enough that you might accept it. Molokai to Maui, 8.4 miles. Lanai to Molokai, 9.2 miles. Lanai to Maui, 9.5 miles. Those channels look like thin blue lines on any map. And here is what makes this strange. There is no proposal for a fixed crossing anywhere in this chain. Not a failed one, not a canceled one. For a crossing shorter than the one separating two continents, the answer from every engineer who has ever looked at Hawaii has been nothing at all. The reason is in the water below those thin blue lines. Start with a reference point. The Øresund Bridge connects Denmark and Sweden. It is 16 kilometers long. It sits in roughly 8 to 10 meters of water at its shallowest points. That is the benchmark for what makes a water crossing buildable at scale. A relatively shallow, stable seabed that engineers can anchor into. The Channel Tunnel runs 75 meters below sea level. The deepest, most serious crossing proposal ever studied is Gibraltar, and it has never moved past the proposal stage, in part because of what lies beneath it. That depth will become relevant in a moment. Now the Hawaiian channels, in order. The Auau Channel between Lanai and Maui, the shallowest inter-island gap in the chain, 252 feet. That is already many times the depth of the water the Øresund Bridge sits in. The Pailolo Channel between Molokai and Maui, the 8.4 crossing that looks like nothing on a map, 846 feet. The Kaiwi Channel between Molokai and Oahu, 2,202 feet. The Alenuihaha Channel between Maui and the Big Island, 6,810 feet. The Kauai Channel between Oahu and Kauai, 10,890 feet. The Knockout Comparison. Gibraltar's proposed tunnel reaches just over 1,500 feet at its deepest. The Alenuihaha, the number you just heard, sits at 6,810. The most challenging crossing proposal ever seriously studied by engineers is less than a quarter the depth of a standard Hawaiian channel. This is not depth in the way the English Channel is deep, or the North Sea. Those are continental shelf crossings, gradual, wide, relatively flat seabeds that give engineers something to work with. Hawaiian channels are deep for a completely different reason. These islands are not sitting on a continental shelf. They are the exposed peaks of enormous volcanic mountains rising directly from oceanic crust miles below the surface. The ocean floor between the islands is not a shallow shelf. It is the space between the flanks of underwater mountains, and those flanks drop away almost vertically from the shoreline. Every bridge and tunnel ever built requires a foundation, relatively flat, stable, accessible bedrock that can hold enormous load. Hawaiian channels offer vertical walls dropping into oceanic crust. There is no shelf, no gradual slope, no intermediate depth to stage construction from. The mountain starts at the shoreline and the floor is miles down. This geometry is a direct consequence of how the islands were made, each one rising separately over a single fixed volcanic hotspot as the Pacific Plate moved beneath it. That origin matters, and it will matter again at the end of this video. The depth alone would be enough, but then there is the water moving through these channels. The Kaiwi Channel between Molokai and Oahu carries a reputation as one of the most dangerous stretches of ocean on Earth. In 1978, Eddie Aikau, the most celebrated waterman in Hawaiian history, paddled into the Kaiwi on a surfboard to seek help for the crew of the distressed voyaging canoe Hokulea. His body was never found. His name became the phrase that Hawaiians used to describe acts of extraordinary courage in the ocean. Eddie would go. The Alenuihaha Channel has a name that translates directly from Hawaiian as Great Billows Smashing. The trade winds funnel through the gap between the mountain peaks of Maui and the Big Island and generate gusts of 40 to 50 knots and steep breaking seas that stack against the current. This is not a seasonal weather pattern. This is the baseline. Any structure built across that channel would face those conditions permanently, every day, not occasionally. The Pailolo Channel does not resemble Gibraltar in any meaningful way except the distance. This is why there are no blueprints. Before looking at individual attempts, one piece of federal law explains why every single one of them started at a disadvantage. The Jones Act requires that any vessel operating between American ports be American-built and American-crewed. That requirement makes every vessel option 2 to 5 times more expensive than equivalent operations elsewhere in the world. Every attempt described below begins after this structural cost floor has already been applied. The year Hawaii became a state, operators launched the first attempt to connect the islands without flying. Vehicle ferry routes ran between Oahu, Maui, and the Big Island. The idea was straightforward. If you cannot build a fixed crossing, move people in their cars across the water instead. The routes ended quietly within a few years. The economics never worked. The next attempt had real technology behind it. Boeing jetfoil hydrofoils, capable of 50 knots, running multiple daily runs between islands. For 3 years, this looked like a real solution. Then the rough inter-island conditions and the relentless maintenance costs they produced ended the operation. The boats were sold and ended up running ferry routes between Hong Kong and Macau. Even the fastest boat technology of the era could not make the economics of Hawaiian inter-island travel work. The ocean had made sure the economics would never work. The most ambitious attempt came in 2007, a 350-foot catamaran. Certified capacity for 866 passengers and 282 vehicles. This was not a regional ferry. This was a serious piece of infrastructure. The problems came quickly. The vessel burned 15 times more fuel than a plane covering the same distance and took 6 times as long to complete the same journey. Those two numbers together made the economics almost impossible from the start. Then the environmental conflict arrived. Humpback whales migrate through those same channels every winter. The Hawaii Supreme Court ruled that operations could not continue without a full environmental impact statement. Operations were suspended. The company declared bankruptcy 2 months later. Both ships were sold to the U.S. Navy at a fraction of the cost to build them. One vessel was eventually leased to a ferry company in Canada. It now runs between Maine and Nova Scotia. The catamaran that could not survive Hawaiian channels operates peacefully in the Atlantic. The most recent attempt chose to mostly avoid the water entirely. The Regent Monarch is an all-electric craft that uses aerodynamic ground effect to travel just above the water surface rather than cutting through it. The most advanced solution currently being attempted for Hawaiian inter-island travel barely touches Hawaiian water at all. Hawaiian Airlines invested in Regent specifically to support the Monarch's design program. The smaller 12-passenger model, the Viceroy, completed its first crewed sea trials in 2025 and is on track for commercial deliveries in 2026 and 2027. The larger Monarch, the 100-seat Hawaiian-specific version, remains in the design phase with service targeted for 2028. Every attempt at connecting the Hawaiian Islands has ended in bankruptcy, mothballing, or a vessel that works better somewhere else. Kauai came first, then Oahu, then Maui, then the Big Island, still sitting over that same fixed hotspot now, still growing. Each one born separately, surrounded immediately by full oceanic depth the moment it broke the surface. They were born apart. The space between them was never a gap that formed after two connected things pulled apart. It was always there. The channels between the Hawaiian Islands are not separations. They are the natural condition of volcanic islands forming one at a time over a single point in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The same geology that creates the depth creates the channels, creates the currents, and has ended every attempt to bridge them. 22 miles southeast of the Big Island, 3,000 feet below the surface, the next Hawaiian island is already forming. Loihi Seamount is building slowly over the same hotspot that built every island before it. In tens of thousands of years, it will break the surface. When it does, it will be surrounded by the same deep channels, the same violent water, the same oceanic crust dropping away from its flanks into miles of open ocean below. The geography makes no exceptions for the newest island. Engineers are drawing blueprints for a 130-mile tunnel under the Korea Strait. Nobody has ever drawn a blueprint for 8.4 miles of Hawaiian Ocean. Let that sit. And when you're done sitting with it, tell us in the comments. Do you think Hawaii will ever be connected? Or is this one problem geography wins forever? If this is the kind of question you want to keep asking, subscribe. We do videos every week. See you in the next one.